right, well, I'm all rested and ready to go, I guess. I don't know. Actually, I'm not so sure that that's true. We had a week off last week, and I don't know. I could have used more time, I think, but here I am back.
It's always good to take a week off, even if we don't need it. But we really did need to take a week off this time.
We need more than a week off.
But the only problem with that is it's easy to forget about the music I started listening to last week already. So
not only that, but all these new things start coming out, and you're like, oh, man, we didn't do this last week. So we got that much less to do. I don't know.
Well, one thing I've had to get over is feeling bad about things that we didn't choose, because every time you choose something, it's one other recording that you can't choose. So you just have to roll with it and wait for the next one to come out.
I'm even rejecting things because a lot of classical recordings these days are coming out like in multi-CD sets.
Oh, right.
And that's too much for us. But
yeah,
I'd love to do them, but there's just no time. There's a great Martinu Symphonies box for any of you collectors out there by Jakub Hrusa. You should check that out. It's really good performances. I'm a big Martinu fan now, I got to say. He's got some good music. There's also one that we might do, actually, on the podcast, just released by Brilliant Classics, of his chamber works. That looks pretty interesting. Rarely recorded chamber works.
Interesting.
And then there's another one of Respighi chamber works, too, that I might program. Not the Martinu one. That's a little old now, but for us. But the Respighi one just came out, so I might do that.
See that? We're all excited, endlessly excited about new releases here at Adult Music, the podcast with music for the mature mind. I'm your co-host, Russ.
I'm your co-host, Mike. Feeling really fresh and rested here.
We're ready to go. This is episode 262. And you know what? We took a week off, and in that time, a few musicians have reached the coda, Mike.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, so I've got to get over to the piano here this week. Okay, we have three passings in jazz. First of all, Joe Negri, guitarist and educator, but best known as Handyman Negri on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
Yeah, now I remember him vaguely from watching Mr. Rogers as a kid. Probably a lot of Gen Xers out there will remember his character, but you may not know that he was a master musician. He died on May 30th. At the age of 99, just a week or so short of his 100th birthday.
No, that's too bad.
Yeah. Anyway, Negri had albums on True Image Recordings and MCG Jazz. He played with Nancy Wilson, Benny Benac, and many others. He was a teacher at Duquesne University in Pittsburgh, and seeing various things written about him in the time since he's passed, I noticed that he was once a teacher of Sean Purcell, a guitarist we really like.
Oh, yeah, I have his record, too.
His album, Oblivion. And it seems that people had a lot of fond memories about him as a person and a musician. So rest in peace, Joe Negri. Next, guitarist James Blood Ulmer passed away on June 3rd at the age of 86. He recorded on his own and also collaborative albums on labels such as Artist's House, Rough Trade, Columbia, Blue Note, In and Out, Pi Recordings, and others. He was a founding member of the Music Revelation Ensemble and also played with people like Joe Henderson, Rashid Ali, Arthur Blythe, Ornette Coleman, and many others. And so rest in peace, James Blood Ulmer. And finally, bassist John B. Williams passed away on June 5th at the age of 85. He was a member of the bands on The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson and also the Arsenio Hall Show. He had albums on Fontainebleau Music, Alessa, Simply Smokin', and he played with a huge list of names all the way from Louis Armstrong and Johnny Hodges to Bobby Hutcherson, Billy Cobham, Louis Bellson, Gerald Wilson, Nancy Wilson, John Hendricks. There's a list as long as my arm of names that he played with. And I saw a lot of comments in remembrance of him. So rest in peace, John B. Williams as well.
All right, great.
Yeah, no passings in classical to report this time.
Yeah, we did okay. I'm sure there must have been somebody out there, but nobody that came on my radar, let's say.
All right, then, we're fresh and ready to roll into the music. So in the episode description, you'll find links to Spotify, Apple Music, and Amazon Music for all of the recordings we're going to discuss. And at the top of the description, there's a link to the full episode playlist. That's all the music in one place on Deezer, CD quality streaming music from France. If you can't see the description or if the recording list and links are hard to access on whatever app or platform you're listening to us on now, you can always come over and check us out on our host site, That's Podbean, Podbean.com. Everything's easy to follow there. If you enjoy the podcast, please follow or subscribe wherever you enjoy listening to us. And do tell a music-loving friend, help us grow our audience. If you take a moment to give us a ranking or write a short review, that helps us get listed in the music category recommendations, and that's another way we can grow our audience. Come and follow us on our Facebook page as well to get extra info and more new releases when I find them during the week. You can also leave a message or comment there. You can check us out on X too as well. We're Adult Music Pod there. And if you'd like to contact us directly with any comments or questions, our email address is adultmusicpodcast, all one word, @gmail.com. We'll be playing music sample clips as part of our discussion, and this is our fair use disclaimer. Music sample clips are for commentary and educational purposes. We recommend that listeners listen to the complete recordings, all of which are available on streaming services in the links provided. And we also suggest that if you enjoy the music, you consider purchasing the CDs or high-quality downloads to support the artists. But let's get into the music. We've got some great Baroque music to start out with this week.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this record. This is an album called Echoes of My Childhood, and it's by Daniel Müller-Schott on the cello, and also accompanying him, Anderson Fiorelli on cello, and sometimes playing, kind of the second cello with him, and Irina Zahharenkova on harpsichord. This is on the Orfeo label, released June 5th, and it's a very long record, too, really maxing out the CD at 1 hour and 20 minutes, just about. So lots of music to be enjoyed on this album. Now, the album is entitled Echoes of My Childhood because Müller-Schott's mother played the harpsichord. And the harpsichord played by Irina Zahharenkova on this album is the same one that Müller-Schott's mother played. Yeah, so we have that. And I get the impression that music making in those days was played on modern instruments because Daniel Müller-Schott here is playing... He's using vibrato, and that's not really done anymore in Baroque music. So it's kind of nice to hear, though. It's very expressive. And he makes these pieces very expressive and actually draws out a few surprises for me, and I'm going to mention those as we come up. And the first surprise came in this first piece, which is by Boccherini, Cello Sonata in C major, G6. Now, Boccherini's music is pretty interesting because he was... contemporary of Mozart. He was older than Mozart. He's really contemporary of Haydn, I think it's better to say. And he was one of these people who was putting together what would become the classical style. Now, we think of really Haydn and Mozart kind of hammered this into shape. When we think of a sonata, it's really what Haydn and then really Mozart came up with. Boccherini's sonatas don't work the same way. They're a little different. It's pretty interesting the way themes repeat and sort of develop or don't develop. It's sort of like when you hear, like in popular music, when you have two producers going for a certain sound and one sound becomes the popular sound.
Right.
That sort of happened here. Mozart and Haydn won and Boccherini didn't. But it's still interesting music to listen to, and especially here. Track 1, the first movement is Allegro, and here Müller-Schott is heard right away. He comes across with a sweet lyrical tone. Again, something that you don't hear in Baroque music much these days. You usually get that viola da gamba type non-vibrato sound.
Right.
Here, this is quasi-Baroque and quasi-romantic. He's kind of like bridging kind of a space between the two styles. The piece is from the early classical era, so tempos are a bit on the slow side. These three musicians managed to make a big saturating sound on the album too, and especially Müller-Schott with his huge tone. Let's hear a bit of this and you'll know what I'm talking about. If you have those eagle ears, you can hear that other cello kind of making comments in the background too, which is very cool. At around the 2-minute and 30-second mark, the development section of the sonata form movement begins. Again, this is an early sonata, so it doesn't behave like you'd expect a sonata to behave. Then at 3 minutes and 55 seconds, we're at something of a recapitulation. Again, it's not really so clear how this is working. Boccherini was going his own way as to what the first movement's form would be like, but it roughly fits a sonata. The movement is ebullient all the way through. So the idea is the sonata is the most intellectual of the movements because it kind of tells a story. It's derived from opera. So you can think of the two kind of themes in development as being two opera characters who are changed by the end of the opera. So it's kind of, those themes are interacting as characters would in an opera. All right, the second movement, Largo Assai, very Largo, very slow. And what a great sighing tone that Müller-Schott produces in the opening of this movement. You noticed that too, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, this kind of really had me out of my seat right away. Let's listen to this opening. It's so good. And of course, you hear that low cello and the harpsichord as well in there.
Yeah, I sort of felt the harpsichord is kind of recessed in the Boccherini, but comes to life a little bit later in the recording.
Maybe. It's kind of a light-sounding instrument, though, and I think she kind of has like a small tone. I guess recess is a good word for it, but Fiorelli, the cellist, Anderson Fiorelli, is right up front there with those big, deep tones, too.
It's a nice blend, yeah.
Yeah. Now, the transition at the 30-second mark, which we heard a bit of, to the next theme is beautifully executed, too. At 2 minutes and 50 seconds, a new theme reaching into the higher end of the cello's register comes in, and Müller-Schott continues with his lyrical, sighing style here, and it puts the movement's mood across beautifully. There are lightly breathing double stops at 3 minutes and 40 seconds that I particularly enjoyed. At the 4 minute and 19-second mark, the opening section repeats, or the A section, I guess I should say. Those double stops are heard again at 5 minutes and 40 seconds, and at 6 minutes, there's a lovely solo section for the cello, poetically played. This movement came across as magical here, and I urge you to sample it in full. It really gave me a new appreciation for this work. I mean, I've heard it before, but I was really drawn into it this time. Track 3, the third movement and final movement, Allegro Moderato. This has an ebullient mood like the opening movement. It has a completely different theme, though, and it sounds a bit like a gigue. It's dance-like. At the 40-second mark, Müller-Schott reaches into the high end of the cello for his theme, and again, we get to hear more great lyricism. The movement maintains its ebullient mood throughout, requiring Müller-Schott to play some pretty naughty passages at speed. Irina Zahharenkova gets a chance to sparkle on the harpsichord at around the 4 minute mark. Yeah, in fact, in this piece, the harpsichord comes across with a sort of sparkly sense to it. Track 4 is Bach, Violin Sonata in C minor, BWV 1024. The first movement, Adagio, arranged for 2 cellos and harpsichord by Anonymous. That guy, Anonymous.
Yeah.
Anyway, he's everywhere. I think he was a vampire. He must have lived for centuries. Anyway, this starts with a big, throaty, double-stopped chord on continuo cellist Anderson Fiorelli's cello, after which Müller-Schott plays the introductory theme. The piece has a sense of an improvised, rhythmless movement. There's no pulse to it, and it comes across pretty heavily with those 2 cellos playing. It's enjoyable, though. You should hear it just for its tone. We don't get the rest of that sonata, though. Tracks 5 through 8, Gimignani, 6 cello sonatas, opus 5. This is number 3 in C major, H105. The first movement, Andante, track 5, starts with a beautiful creamy sound from the continuo, with the cello coming in equally smoothly. By the way, are we enjoying the beautiful lyricism of Müller-Schott's playing yet? This is the 5th track. I'm already transported by this. It's a really great sounding album and great playing too. He's quickly becoming one of my favorite cellists on this recording. I actually have a few recordings of him playing more romantic repertoire, and he's really great in that too. But I'm really enjoying this. Track 6, the second movement, Allegro. This has a rollicking energy to it with the cello playing vigorously. There's gorgeous phrasing, and the melodic hooks are effectively drawn out by Müller-Schott. They can easily get lost, depending on how fast and non-sensitively you're playing. But he brings them all out here. He shows that this is a really attractive piece. Okay, we also have to shout out Anderson Fiorelli for his equally melodic sort of bass playing underneath, or the lower voice playing on this track too. He sounds fantastic as well. Track 7, the third movement, Affettuoso. This is played with a lighter touch than the opening Andante, though the second cello's bass line, played by Anderson Fiorelli in the continuo, comes across with deep, wide tone when it gets down low. The harpsichord has a light chime to it, feeling weightless and airy. In fact, I kind of like the contrast between the harpsichord's lightness and chiminess and the very low playing that Fiorelli is doing on the lower cello. Müller-Schott brings out the lyricism of the main melody beautifully. Track 8, the fourth movement of this work, Allegro. The final movement has a chirpy sound and upbeat rhythm to it, and Müller-Schott projects ample energy, as do Fiorelli and Zahharenkova. The movement proceeds in ABA form with a slower section, teasing the listener with a sudden quick forte outbursts in the B section. And that's the end of that piece. We move on to Johann Sebastian Bach's Sonata for Viola da Gamba in G minor, arranged for 2 cellos and harpsichord by Anonymous. I'm sure it's not the same Anonymous. BWV 1029. Track 9, the first movement, is Vivace. I've always thought this piece sounds a lot slicker on a modern cello. Müller-Schott's naturally dark tone, which is very interesting for this listener, for me, suits the work well. Listen to this. Okay, there's never a cadence coming in that work, so Bach just keeps the music going. Müller-Schott lightens the tone as he gets higher in his range and sighs through the quieter section of the work, such as at around the 2 minute and 15 second mark. Here, Irina Zahharenkova's harpsichord comes through with its appealing light sound, lightly imitating the cello's lines. Track 10, the second movement, Adagio. I like the very light tone Müller-Schott establishes at the opening of the work, along with Irina Zahharenkova's lightly sounding harpsichord. Let's give this a listen. Okay, we're going to have to let that go before the entire phrase ends. What gorgeous lyrical playing by Müller-Schott there. At 2 minutes and 22 seconds, the harpsichord begins a new section with the cello quickly coming in to melodize. Once again, gorgeous legato playing by Müller-Schott, and Zahharenkova's accompaniment is sensitive with a lingering quality to it. Track 11, the third movement, Allegro, and again, the harpsichord begins the movement in appealing style, and the cello comes in canon. I love those like extended approaches to the cadence where you think it's there and then they just kind of extend it a bit more. Beautiful playing there too. Now the harpsichord plays a big role in this movement, as you might have noticed, constantly moving and generating forward motion as the cello plays a dancing melody above it, often playing circling patterns. It's a movement with positive, unflagging energy, and it's a really great movement to listen to in full. Tracks 12 through 14. Luigi Boccherini again, cello sonata in A major, G4, the second version. So track 12 is movement 1, Adagio, which is a little odd. Usually these sonatas go fast, slow, fast. Boccherini has decided to make this one slow, fast, slow. Again, experimentation was still happening until the form was really in place. The cello simply melts into the melody at the opening of this movement, with Anderson Fiorelli on cello 2 providing the continual bass line. By now I've said this enough, but Müller-Schott's phrasing draws out qualities I hadn't been aware of in Boccherini's music. At around the 2 minute and 50-second mark, the tempo picks up a bit, and the music is propelled to its final cadence, but not before a gorgeous rising scale ending on a harmonic by Müller-Schott. Really beautiful pattern there. Track 13, the second movement, Allegro Moderato. Here, Müller-Schott has a busy line and an ebullient one, which he puts across expertly with full rhythmic feeling and some virtuosity as well. Now, Müller-Schott plays with energy, and the momentum continues throughout this 6+ minute movement. It really feels like the final movement of a work, but this is really the middle movement, remember. The movement itself goes through some harmonic twists and turns that, again, I really hadn't noticed until hearing this performance. So effectively does Müller-Schott pull out the movement's expressive qualities. The third movement is marked Affettuoso. It's track 14. The sonata is a bit unusual in having two slow movements housing a middle fast movement in between. And again, Boccherini tinkering with what was becoming the sonata form. It works well in Boccherini's hands, and we get to hear Müller-Schott's lyricism again. He's even highly expressive in the lighter moments, providing a sense of weight being removed from the heart. I like the movement's move from lyrical to light-hearted. At the 2-minute and 33-second mark, a new slow section starts, with a different theme in the cello featuring a conjunct double-stopped chord melody. The opening theme then comes back at around the 3-minute and 10-second mark to end the section, and it repeats, after which the piece comes to a satisfying final chord. I'm going to have you sample that movement on your own in full. It's really good. Tracks 15 through 18, Vivaldi Cello Sonata in A minor, RV 43. Track 15 is the first movement, Largo, and again, Vivaldi also experimenting here, I guess. He's going slow, fast, slow, which is unusual for him. The piece starts boldly in Vivaldi fashion. It's got a sort of question and answer type of phrasing, except the answer is pretty lengthy. There are some attractive and rather quiet harpsichord flourishes between verses. The material pretty much sticks to its pattern for the entire movement. Track 16 is the second movement, Allegro. The theme here is assertive and played with some heavy bowing from Müller-Schott on the bass notes, producing a satisfyingly deep and powerful tone. This heavily accented theme contrasts with a more lyrical one immediately following, and Müller-Schott makes the transition with ample contrast between the themes. Track 17, the third movement, Largo. I like the floating quality this movement is given by the entire ensemble, with the harpsichord set to a muted lute-like setting and the second cello playing a counter-melodic line. This is the movement I'm going to sample here. All right, but wait, there's a fourth movement as well. So this is really a sonata da chiesa. Now, in this Italian style, you have a slow first movement and then a fast, slow, fast. That would be a sonata da chiesa, which differs from the fast, slow, fast 3-movement work. The fourth movement, Allegro, has, as with all Vivaldi works, an upbeat feel. Yeah, Vivaldi work, you have to end the work like that. The opening theme is back often as with a rondo, and once again the energy is palpable and consistent, and as a result the theme's return is always welcome, always sounding fresh in Müller-Schott's hands. Track 19, Bach, Oboe Concerto in D minor, BWV 974, the second movement, Adagio, arranged for 2 cellos and harpsichord by some anonymous guy. It might have been a woman too, we don't really know, but anonymous. I like the muted repeating note on the harpsichord that starts this piece and how the chord builds up with this sound. Fiorelli is in first with a cello bass line, followed by Müller-Schott with the gorgeous melody. I'm going to go ahead to when Müller-Schott enters. mean, that sounds so good on the cello that you really kind of almost can't imagine it on the oboe anymore. The movement has a gorgeous melody that unspools for its entire length, and we're in great melodic hands with Müller-Schott, whose shaping and pacing of the melody are always sensitive. It's a deeply satisfying ending to a deeply satisfying album. Yeah, this is an album that I thought, oh, we'll talk about this and I'll like it, but now I have to have it. I really like it a lot. For me, the playing of Daniel Müller-Schott on this album was a real discovery, and I say this having heard him before. He seems to be on great form here, with a full tone and fantastic phrasing throughout. I thought the Boccherini works were especially revelatory. Müller-Schott brought out melodic qualities via his lingering pace and sensitive phrasing that gave me a new appreciation for all of these works. In all of them, though, his sensitivity to melodic contour and phrasing served the works in such a way that they come across with more emotion than I've heard in other recordings. Irina Zahharenkova on harpsichord and Anderson Fiorelli on the second cello provide excellent continuo. Both are also sensitive, and Zahharenkova has a contrasting, very light tone that's a pleasure to hear when it comes in. This album was a real surprise. I expected it to be good, but not as revelatory as it turned out to be.
It was an enjoyable program of cello music, and having two cellos in the works gives your ears a lot of lines to listen to. Müller-Schott's tone is warm with just a little fuzzy texture that makes it appealing. I thought Anderson Fiorelli blends and balances well with him throughout the recording. The phrasing and tempos are well judged, and in the first Boccherini, the allegro and allegro moderato movements have rhythmic energy, but still the motion is moderated by musical phrasing. The Geminiani had a pleasing Italian springiness to the rhythms, as does the final Vivaldi movement. You know it's him when you get to the last movement.
Of course.
At first I thought the harpsichord was rather recessed in the recording, as I mentioned, but Zahharenkova's playing starts to stand out more in the Bach Viola da Gamba Sonata, and the trills with the cello together really caught my ear as appealing. It's an overall enjoyable recording of music with fine cello playing throughout, and I thought the styling and phrasing was really unique.
All right, the next album was pretty fantastic as well. I really loved this. This is Gabriel Fauré, sonatas for violin and piano, and some transcriptions for violin and piano. This is played by Kerson Leong, who is Canadian. He's on the violin, and Jonathan Fournel, the piano. He's French. This is on the Alpha label, released on May 29th. The booklet note takes the form of an interview with the two musicians. I liked Fournel's statement that Fauré's writing conveys the feelings we carry in our hearts, but often find difficult to express. Even when themes seem simple or song-like, beneath them lies a complex inner world. Fauré's great quality lies in illuminating the voice and emotions we carry inside, always seeking clarity in the unspoken. Leong says Fauré's music takes the shape of a hand resting on the shoulder, quietly assuring you that, despite the weight of the emotion present, all is going to be well. Well, I couldn't have said it better myself, and this is probably the reason, now finally put into words, why I love Fauré's music so much too. The two violin sonatas were written at opposite ends of Fauré's career. To round out the program, the duo selected transcriptions of several of his melodies in shorter pieces that reveal different sides of his character. Tracks 1 through 4, Violin Sonata No. 1, Opus 13. This is a really joyful work and should just put the sun in the sky for you, even on the rainiest of days. Track 1, the first movement, Allegro molto. The piano line starts rather boldly. It often comes in from almost silence. I really liked this, actually, this approach by Fournel. He's a pretty creative piano player. It has some attractive ebbs and flows in the line as well. Leong has a sweet tone that suits the piece well. Balance in this piece is important, and here it's well achieved. The violin is always audible, as is the piano despite its quieter sections. Leong plays with a lot of expression. Here's the repeat of the exposition when the violin comes in, and let this kind of carry you away. Oh, I could keep going. I really just love this movement.
Great.
In fact, I'm going to sample something else from it later. The melodic sense of the line is fully realized here, and this is a highly appealing performance, competing with my favorite Pascal Roger and Pierre Amoyal recording. And there are elements of this that I like better. At 3 minutes and 35 seconds, the development section begins with a hush and the melodic elements in the foreground. At the 4 minute 12 second mark, the violin changes the pace, bringing some sudden happy passion out of the line. The entire development section is played with clarity and enough variety that the ear is kept engaged. The recapitulation is elided into at the 6 minute and 30 second mark, with the opening violin line reappearing at about 6 minutes and 55 seconds. The wonderful build-up to the passionate climax with its Wagnerian hint of the climax in Isolde's Liebestod is perfectly built up here. It's a moment I judge this piece by, and, well, I highly approve of the way it's achieved here. Fantastic. Track 2, the second movement, Andante. The Siciliano rhythm is taken rather fast by Fournel on the piano, with Leong playing the theme with a hush to the violin tone. I like the way hints of the first movement's opening theme are drawn out by Fournel from the piano line. Listen for them. The violin takes a few of them on as well. Now for me, having themes from the first movement in this movement kind of makes me feel like it's a memory of how wonderful the experience of the first movement was. So it's kind of like almost after the fact, thinking back to it. At least that's how I interpret it. You're free to do as you like. It's an instrumental piece after all. There's a real joy in Leong's tone as we approach the 3 minute mark, after which a tentativeness of the Siciliano theme is heard, the piano playing in raindrop-like staccato, with the violin commenting. What's compelling me here is the constant expressiveness of both players. Every minute of this movement comes across with great concentration and clarity, and it draws the listener in right up to the gentle ending on the piano. Track 3, the third movement, Allegro Vivo, has a quick tempo as well, Fournel showing especially fleet fingers while achieving a smooth line. The speed allows the violinist a lot of freedom to connect the melody in an expressive way. At around the 1 minute and 9 second mark, the B section of this ABA movement begins, with the violin playing a downward moving yet appealing theme. The piano goes through a lot of key areas when it gets the solo, as if searching for something. Once the violin is back in, the section takes on some poignancy before suddenly bursting back into the cheerful A section after a cheeky pizzicato line on the violin. Fantastic approach to the final cadence. A great interpretation of this movement. Track 4, the fourth and final movement of the sonata, Allegro quasi presto. Man, quick tempos are taken all around, and as a result, this theme loses some of its dance step quality, a quality that I love from the Amoyal Roger performance. But this interpretation winds up gaining in the melodic and expressivity department, especially given Leong's approach. There's a beautiful contrasting section at around the 1 minute and 40-second mark, with the violin up high, giving way to the opening melody, which is a bit more lightly scored. I love the shimmering tone Fournel gets on the piano in those lines from the high end. I think that line gives the quality of the hand on the shoulder that reassures you. I really like the whole sound of it. At around the 2 minute and 40-second mark, we hear that reaching for the passionate climax again, but it's a tease here as the music drops back down to the opening theme, now heard in the piano. There are appealing variations of tone and texture as the movement moves toward its ending, with the music decrescendoing as it moves towards its climax. Then suddenly doing a quick crescendo when reaching for the final chord. The sunniness of this entire piece is well projected overall in this performance. Okay, we now get to the middle of the program, and these are smaller works. Some of them are arrangements. The first one is a nocturne. This is track 5, opus 57, number 5. This was arranged by Fauré himself from his orchestral Shylock suite, opus 57. We get some of that wonderful Fauré melody here, with the violin taking the spotlight. Leong showing an excellent sense for melodic phrasing, drawing out a lot of the melodic appeal of this theme. Fournel is sensitive in his rather straightforward accompaniment, ebbing and flowing along with the violin. It's a compact and gorgeous piece, and readily available for those who want to play it, since Fauré himself transcribed it. Track 6, Le Berceau, opus 23, number 1, arranged by the violinist Kerson Leong. The poem is about sailors leaving their families and touches on the unknown and distance from the ones we love. I should mention this is a song, okay, so it has a text. There's a bit of darkness to this song, Leong keeping the melody in the lower, darker sounding end of the violin. Fournel happily goes along with another straightforward accompanimental line. Again, great expression from Leong on the violin. His ability with a melody really stands out here. Track 7, Fileuse, Opus 80 number 2, arranged by Leopold Auer from the orchestral Pelléas et Mélisande. Now, a fil in French, in this case, is a thread. So a fileuse is a woman who works with thread. So a spinner, she's like spinning something, spinning wheel. And you're going to hear that in the piece. The piece brings humor and weightless spinning movement. The violin uses a muted tone here for its spinning line, and here the piano has the main theme. Now, the rhythm of this goes with a spinning wheel, and that's the image we're supposed to get. So let's hear this. So the rhythm in this piece always has that mechanical kind of spinning wheel kind of feel to it. It's really enjoyable just to listen to that. But then you have these great melodies too. The violin then plays double-stopped lines as the piano goes into figuration that includes rapid right-hand figures. The piece itself is beautifully shaped so that its arc is palpable along with its appealing themes and figures. Track 8, Clair de Lune, Opus 46 number 2, arranged by Albert Perrieux. Based on Verlaine's text, the piece evokes quiet wonder. Clair de Lune means moonlight. These short pieces seem to go by quickly. Such a box of sweets do they seem to be. This has an appealing theme too, again with the violin taking a lot of the melody, but the piano gets some sections as well. Beautiful sweet tone from the violin at about the 1 minute and 15-second mark. The opening theme is back at about 2 minutes and 40 seconds, making for a satisfying structure to the song. I'll leave you to sample this one on your own. I want to mention something very interesting. Debussy also set this text in a song, and he also has a piano piece called Clair de Lune, which has nothing to do with that original song or this one, so don't get confused. Track 9, one of my favorite of all short Fauré pieces, Berceuse, Opus 16. A berceuse is a cradle song or a lullaby. This is originally for this combination of instruments too. It takes a slowish speed, and I love Leong's veiled tone here. This really is an ideal reading of the piece, beautifully shaped and paced, with all ebbs and flows, crescendos and decrescendos in place. Oh, wow. I just love that melody so much. The middle section comes across with some heightened emotion, but this piece is meant to soothe, and that it does. Beautifully taken gentle high note by Leong to end the piece, too. Track 10, Après un rêve, Opus 7 number 1, arranged by Kerson Leong. This is a very famous melody, with a text reaching for lost love. The piano starts this famous piece off with repeating chords. The violin gets the melodic interest here. Leong draws a lot of qualities of emotion out of the melody. I especially liked his change of register just past the 1 minute mark and how he makes it sound like a sudden heightening of emotion along with his tone. There's all those great sort of sudden key changes, too, which is really fantastic as well. It's said that for those key changes, he was thinking of the French language when he was trying to come up with a French style of writing music. He wanted to get away from the German style that was so dominant in the 19th century. So the way those harmonies sort of melt into the other one sort of simulates the French way of words sort of melting into other words, with those soft endings and things like that. Now, you're missing the words here, though, and it's remarkable how much Leong manages to convey without them. The piece ends on a determined cadential note. Track 11, the last of these songs here, Soir, Opus 83, number 2, which means evening. This is arranged by Albert Stoessel. This has raindrop arpeggios on the piano, and they accompany the violin melody here. The piano has some poetry in its line, Fournel applying a sensitive touch. The violin has a melodic line throughout with an emotional climax at the end of the B section that leads back to a gentle return to the A section, which has some outflowing of emotion that immediately ebbs back, and the piano leads to the final notes. Track 12 through 14, we're at the third and the other end of the program with Violin Sonata number 2, Opus 108. This was a very late work, and this is the lesser loved of the two violin sonatas, and you can kind of see why. This is a deeper, more sort of subtly emotive work, but it really repays repeated listening because the subtleties come out and they really do kind of feed you throughout your older life, as Russ and I are getting into now. Anyway, let's listen to this a little bit. Track 12, the first movement, Allegro non troppo. The movement is turbulent yet swells into a river of resilience, brimming with defiance in the face of calamity and striving toward the light until the very end. Now, that might be Leong saying that in the booklet. I don't remember which of the duo said that, but that's his explanation. There's no pause on the recording between the previous track and this very dramatic movement, which opens with some serious intent and ramps up already at around the 30-second mark. The piano has rippling arpeggios played with pinprick sharpness by Fournel. The drama does ebb away at points, such as at around the 1 minute and 30-second mark. Things transition naturally, but happen within a compressed period of time. It's remarkable if you step back from it and realize how much Fauré is squeezing into each theme. This is a quality that the duo capture well in their pacing and dramatic playing. At around the 3 minute and 30-second mark, the violin starts a theme that repeats in different sequenced sections, generally moving upward. The piano bursts out with some accents at around the 5 minute and 15-second mark and pushes the violin into a more passionate stance. There's a tension build-up at 5 minutes and 45 seconds that releases into a momentary, gorgeous, downward-moving theme. Things are fleeting in this movement. A lot of the beautiful and extraordinary qualities are there for only a moment, and the duo catch them in their performance. You'll hear all of them, because of the duo, the way they kind of draw them out. The ending is florid and dramatic. Track 13, the second movement, Andante. Desolate yet teeming with heartfelt sentiment. This is the duo again explaining this. Building to a forceful climax before subsiding into a state of newfound tranquility. Now in this movement, the piano begins with a repeating chord, just like in the first sonata, but it's a quicker tempo, and the violin enters with great sadness in its tone. It's been through a bit. We wonder where we're going because we're not reaching that cadence. The violin line finds a more sturdy footing in its melody and plays with confidence. The piano takes over for a moment at just after the 1 minute mark. I like the resigned quality that Leong gives his phrasing in this movement. At around the 3 minute mark, the harmony becomes unstable and starts climbing to higher keys, leaving the listener wondering where it's going. By 3 minutes and 20 seconds, it seems to abandon its climb and the duo melodize. A sudden crescendo brings out a passionate line in the violin at 3 minutes and 30 seconds, and by 5 minutes and 30 seconds, there's another move toward higher harmonic realms that curiously, as with the first time, resigns itself to remain where it is. The ending of the movement falls into a reassuring calm. Then we get the final movement, track 14, the third movement, Allegro non troppo. A movement that seems to communicate serene acceptance of the sort one earns after a lifetime of experience. It communicates what Leong says is the kind of comfort he finds in Fauré's music, a luminous peace that feels hard-won. The opening itself sounds peaceful, with its dotted rhythm in the violin, later taken up by the piano. I find this very appealing, too. After a departure, the opening theme is back with a bit more urgency to it, perhaps anxiety, in the violin. The piano is right beside it all along, providing a bed and commenting melodically. There are some harmonic tension build-ups, but the music always seems to land on some kind of positive-sounding calm. The ending gains in energy, and the final tones are strong and positive. Now, this album is certainly on the short list for my end-of-year best albums list. I really loved it. Now, I don't know if it's going to be on it. We still have halfway of the year to go, but I highly recommend this. The playing by both members of the duo is strong and keeps up with the constantly morphing, subtle changes that Fauré's music provides, particularly in the late violin sonata number 2. This is one of the better performances I've heard of the first violin sonata, up there with Pascal Roger and Pierre Amoyal. I'd set this alongside it rather than saying it surpasses the earlier recording. The balance between the instruments is remarkable, and Leong and Fournel both bring a cheerful mood as well as passion to their playing of the score. The music separating the two sonatas are mostly song transcriptions, with a few popular works for chamber duo as well, and this section belongs more to Leong, with his excellent phrasing and subtlety of tone. In some instances, like Après un rêve, he makes one forget that one's missing the words, so well does he put across the song's meaning in tone only. The second violin sonata may be unsurpassed here. It scores high in subtlety, the two musicians navigating Fauré's lightly shaded emotional changes with precision and deep understanding. This is an excellent release. I urge you to hear it, especially given the state of the world now. We tend to think, especially with the internet, in terms of black or white, and Fauré's music is all subtlety. It's all, getting in between the black and the white and finding out just new things. It's really something I think the world needs, and stick with it. You'll really love it, and I think it will feed anyone who hears it.
This was a real treat. Leong's violin tone is very pleasing and draws you into the music, and Fournel's piano playing is very sensitive, and they go together well. They really sound great together. I'm a fan of Fauré's music in general, but the program here really highlights his gift for beautiful melodies. The earlier first violin sonata sounds very romantic in character, and by the time we reach the second sonata, more impressionistic ideas are on display. I enjoyed the fanciful first movement, and the piano accompaniment there reminded me of Dancing Rain. And in the program, the sandwich of melodies in between all sound great. This would be a great recording for anyone who wants to start to explore Fauré's music, and certainly it's a must-listen for anyone who already appreciates it.
The sandwich of melodies. I could just hear Homer Simpson saying, sandwich.
Tasty.
All right, moving on to our contemporary recording of the week. Kjell Flem, born in 1943, his piano concerto and cello concerto. These are played by Oliver Triendl on piano, Benedict Kloeckner on cello, and Rundfunk Symphonieorchester Berlin, Markus L. Frank conductor. This is on the Capriccio label, released on June 5th. Flem studied church music at the conservatories in Oslo and Bergen, Norway, and started his musical life as an organist. He got a scholarship to study at the Sibelius Academy in Helsinki, Finland in 1968 and worked there with Enzio Forsblom for organ, Izumi Tateno for piano, and studied composition with Einar Englund and Eino-Juhani Rautavaara. So those are some pretty big names in the Finnish musical firmament. Now, remember, Flem himself is Norwegian. He studied in Finland, and I think he's picked up quite a bit of these Finnish qualities of evoking nature in his music. He also went on to study in the U.S. He even spent a year in Japan on a Japan Foundation scholarship researching contemporary Japanese music, and studied composition with Akira Miyoshi, a composer and then president of the distinguished Toho Gakuen School of Music in Chofu, Tokyo. So that's a pretty interesting resume, I have to say. He's been in some interesting places. Tracks 1 through 3, Concerto for Piano and Orchestra, composed 1992. This was written for the pianist Håkan Austbø. In writing the work, Flem concentrated on the music around him at the time for inspiration, especially the complex usage of scales associated with Olivier Messiaen, which he discussed with Akira Miyoshi. He says that the concerto in general has a hidden message about being human. Well, I think we could all use that message right about now, so let's dive in. Track 1, the first movement, Moderato. Thread-like strings fade in with a flute playing an arabesque pattern. The piano enters with a shy, fragmentary statement, then comes in more confidently, Triendl providing a light touch and well-rounded full tone, even at pianissimo levels. I should mention the soloist, of course, is Oliver Triendl in this piece, playing the piano. I like the piano scales. It's said they're Messiaen-like, but they come across very pleasingly. It's not really kind of rocky and hard like a lot of Messiaen's music can be. That usually happens because of its rhythms. At the 2 minute and 3 second mark, a rhythm takes hold, and the music starts rushing by as the piano has quick patterns. Let's give this a sample. The piano is pretty busy once the main section arrives, almost constantly playing virtuosic lines. At the 4 minute mark, we hear more of those odd scales that nevertheless come across with a kind of magical quality to them. There is a sense of tension that comes with diatonic scales, so I'd say that added intervals are minimal or don't detract from the tension building and release that comes from the hierarchy created by diatonic scales. By 5 minutes and 30 seconds, percussion is in, bringing a more aggressive feel to the music. In a sense, the movement has the Beethoven piano versus the orchestra quality to it. The aggressiveness peters out, and at 6 minutes and 30 seconds, a long-limbed bass line plays. Beautiful percussive chimes sound, followed by a further stretched-out bass line, now higher up in the cellos. The piano finally makes remarks at 8 minutes and 20 seconds, keeping to the high end and the chiming sound that can be produced up there. This is a long movement at 16 minutes, but its sense of spaciousness makes it go by quickly. Musical events take time in occurring and unfolding. At 10 minutes, a repeating pattern in the strings gives some drive to the brass and wind instruments playing melodic patterns. the piano gets a pretty long rest there while the orchestra plays. I wanted to give a sense of the orchestration of this work by that sample. At this point, I'm getting a sense, through all the variety heard in the various sections of this movement, of Flem's musical surroundings at the time. There was obviously a wide variety of music around him. Tension builds up at the 12-minute and 45-second point, and suddenly the orchestra stops, leaving the piano to play an aggressively rhythmic cadenza with a scurrying bass line and hard-sounding lines above. Listening to a 16-minute contemporary concerto movement may be the best thing you can do to combat the dwindling attention spans caused by the internet, by the way. The piano goes into a multi-rhythmic set of chiming, arpeggiated lines after the aggressive section of the cadenza. Track 2, the second movement, Elegia Lento, or an elegy. This movement segues away from the first movement without interruption as the strings play a drifting line. The piano crashes down on a block harmony, I guess you could call it a chord, and calms down playing lines in the high end of the piano. There's a full-sounding, haunting flute at 2 minutes and 20 seconds. The flute solo here sticks around until about 3 minutes and 10 seconds, almost a minute. Then strings take over, interweaving their harmony. The piano here plays more of an accompanimental role as the string section builds up tension. Again, the movement is fairly long, at just over 11 minutes, but its thematic spaciousness makes it go by quickly. By 6 minutes and 37 seconds, the piano is in with chiming harmonies in the high end. Notes are left to sustain and hang. I liked the gentle, chiming piano ostinato at 7 minutes and 15 seconds. Let's hear that. So an enchanting part of the score right there. The pattern is sequenced to different harmonies as winds play rather haunting sustained themes above. As with the first movement, there are a lot of changes to new thematic sections that I'm not putting across via the samples, so I have to recommend that you hear the entire piece on your own. The piano's ostinato line comes to an abrupt end at the 10-minute mark with a smeared orchestral chord, which the piano responds to by quietly repeating a single chord at ever-widening rhythmic intervals. Now, when I say a smeared chord, what I mean is you can't really make out what it is, major, minor, or whatever. The movement does a decrescendo to its end. Then we get to the final third movement, track 3, Allegro assai. The final movement starts with an urgent-sounding ostinato rhythm in the strings, which the piano plays arabesques over, followed by an aggressive rhythm. Now, I have to say, in the orchestra, when you have repeated notes like that, rhythm is extremely important. You have to have that drive. And I have to say, I'm very impressed here by the Rundfunk Symphony Orchestra Berlin and Markus L. Frank keeping them going. This kind of sounds like a chugging train, it's got a lot of energy. It sounds like it can't be stopped. Again, this is going to be a close to 11-minute movement, so right away, it's got me wondering how this energy is going to be kept up throughout. The piano is very busy in the opening minutes. It gets a few pauses as a new theme of the bassoon emerges at the 2-minute mark. The strings' ostinato rhythm slows and stops, then the strings regroup for a multi-voiced set of melodic themes. I like the piano's slow, triplet-accompanied theme at around the 4-minute mark. After this, a section follows with various wind instruments playing thematic lines and sounding gorgeous in their tone. At 6 minutes and 30 seconds, this suddenly stops, and there are a surprising several seconds of silence, after which the aggressive music of the opening, only now more aggressive, starts chugging in the strings. The piano plays some virtuosic staccato lines at high speed. This all morphs into a lighter rhythm with a brighter aspect to it by the 9-minute mark. The rhythmic momentum and dynamic build up to the end of the piece, and it ends with an accented line that simply stops before any resolution. And that's the work. We then move on to tracks 4 through 6, Concerto for Cello and Orchestra, a more recent work composed in 2005. This concerto further develops the harmonic inventions from the piano concerto. Flem uses vibrant, surprising sounds to express the sounds of nature. The music develops through the contrast of joyous episodes with introverted passages in which the woodwinds and strings, with a broad and textured palette of colors, are pitted against the soloist. Now, these aren't really separated into numbered movements. It's sort of a continuous work. So we have the maestoso section in track 4. The cello starts solo with an opening cadenza-like passage, really digging into the double-stopped chords and playing mostly around the low end. The sound and tone have weight to them. This is now Benedict Kloeckner playing as the cello soloist. At 1 minute and 15 seconds, there's a leap to the mid-range. The solo cello goes on for a full 3 minutes and 30 seconds, and the orchestra then enters with a pianissimo string shimmer. The orchestra finally bursts into fuller color, complete with some percussion at 4 minutes and 22 seconds, and the cello continues with its theme, now played piano. This is virtually a solo cello work for the first half of the movement. Let's hear from after that point at around the 5 minute and 15 second mark. All right, then we end with a rhythm. I wanted you to hear some of the orchestration in there, so I had that section. A steady chugging rhythm develops, which we heard at the end, and the cello takes that rhythm over in its solo line. The cello playing has a lot of character, Kloeckner bringing a narrative and emoting character to his melodic inflection. There's a pulsing rhythm that appears at times and just as suddenly disappears. Approaches change quickly, like quick edits in a movie from around the 7 minute point on. The music crescendos at the end and spills into the next movement, or the next section I should say, where the tempo and dynamics suddenly slow and quieten. So track 5, we're in the andante section, and this has a twinkling, sustained sound to it, with strings providing a streaming bed of sound that the winds lazily play brief arabesques over, and brass play distant lines. The cello starts winding its way into the higher range at around the 2 minute mark. There are also sorts of sudden changes to wind melodies that are pleasing to the ear. An oboe sounds at 2 minutes and 30 seconds right after the cello. Then the cello is back in with a sort of dawn-like depiction that dips into some blue notes. There's a brief 1940s jazz pop feel to the material in this section. It's sort of like a Gershwin nighttime evocation in there, yeah. It makes me wonder, he said that he composed these with a lot of different music around him, and I'm wondering if Gershwin was one of them. He's got that quality, that sort of 1930s sort of feel to it. The material once again changes, and at 6 minutes and 30 seconds, lands again in a twilight blue sort of harmony. At 7 minutes, the cello starts solo again, answered by the ensemble. The orchestra starts a string shimmer again, this time with a bit of nervous tension in it, as the cello solos after 8 minutes and 30 seconds. Yeah, we're hearing a lot of string shimmers in this work. I think Flem really likes that sound. I do too. The cello plays some virtuosic lines after the 9-minute mark, after the orchestra drops out. A setup for the final movement sounds in the last 30 seconds of the second movement, tension building up, and then we get to track 6, the Allegro section. A percussion crash leads into a more martial-sounding theme. This came as quite a surprise. The cello plays lines with a frantic sound to them. I like the full orchestral minimalist effects that occasionally appear, at the 1-minute mark for instance. There's a glimmer to the wind sound in those moments. At 1 minute and 48 seconds, the solo cello is back in with a quickly moving line, sounding in a hurry. The orchestra races alongside it, answering its lines. The orchestra reintroduces the circling minimalistic pattern at 3 minutes, and the cello reappears, riding along. There's occasional percussion, too. The cello winds down the melody by 4 minutes and 30 seconds and then starts building up again without orchestral accompaniment until 4 minutes and 50 seconds. Yeah, the cello gets a lot of solo time in this work. And at 4 minutes and 50 seconds, a brass theme builds up tension further, also sounding a rather grand Nordic nature-type theme. The piece ends on a pounding repeated chord accented by percussion that simply stops without a sense of coming to rest, much as in the piano concerto. Yeah, these kind of odd endings in both of these works. I kind of wonder how much of Flem's music is like that. Anyway, that's the end of the album. Now, when I read that Flem used Messiaen-type chords in his music, I thought we'd be in for some kind of difficult harmonic adventure. But Flem uses his material in a flowing, thematic, pleasing way. He's got a lot of ideas that work their way into each movement, and by this I don't simply mean via orchestration, which does indeed produce some pleasing timbres. I mean in the style of music the piece is composed in. Often, completely different approaches will appear in a single movement, sometimes evoking Nordic landscapes, sometimes a kind of 1930s popular song feel, which I noticed in the cello concerto. Flem seems to compose in episodes. The music put me in mind of the effect of a Japanese garden, where you see one landscape, turn the corner, and you're suddenly in a different natural world, though the elements are familiar. The piece provides a lot of opportunities for the solo instruments to shine, particularly the cello, which gets a lot of solo time in the cello concerto. But these works also come across as self-contained orchestral statements in themselves, and not simply vehicles for the soloists. That said, both soloists shine in their performances, Oliver Triendl getting a fantastic full tone, even in quieter passages, and he makes the piano shimmer up at the top of the keyboard. While I particularly liked Benedict Kloeckner's sense of sincerity in his phrasing and inflection in the cello concerto, I thought both gave great performances. Markus L. Frank brings well-balanced orchestral playing out of the Rundfunk Symphony Orchestra Berlin, and they really get the rhythms chugging, too, in an aggressive way that's very appealing and alive. I've been enjoying many releases on the Capriccio label lately, and this composer is well represented on this recording with its clarity and really unbeatable performances.
Flem is a new contemporary composer for me, and I wasn't sure what to expect. It turns out that I enjoyed his sound universe and found it understandable. Of the two concertos, I liked the piano work more. The various scale ideas in the piano parts are interesting and really appealed to me. I thought that the piano theme has some romantic influences that were pleasing in the first movement, and the album booklet indicated that he had performed the Rachmaninoff Second Concerto as a pianist, so I wondered if those romantic themes seeped into his body.
There you go. That's similar to the Gershwin ones too. Yeah.
I also enjoyed the woodwind scoring and interplay with the piano. In the second movement, there are hints of impressionistic ideas, and I liked the music box-like piano section there. I did enjoy the cello concerto as well, with its mix of rhythmic parts and brooding expression, but I didn't find it as initially appealing as the piano concerto. I'll need to listen more to get a concept for the larger macro structures in both works if they're there. It is episodic, as you mentioned. But I found Flem's development of ideas pull me into the music and sometimes reward and sometimes surprise me with the directions that it goes. But I was intrigued, and I'm definitely up for hearing more of his works.
Yeah, listening to this was no great hardship.
Not at all.
And you got to remember, in the piano concerto, he had mentioned that there was a hidden message about being human in it, so I guess it's probably a good idea to listen to this again and again and try to extract that.
There's definitely enough familiarity on a first listen with things that remind you of other things and then yet go in new directions. I guess all music has to have a certain balance of those elements to keep you entertained and interested. And this had just the right mix for something new for me.
Yeah, it was great. It was appealing. It had its challenges. It was good.
Okay, over on the jazz half of the program, let's start out in Spain on the Errebal jazz label with Collage, a Spanish guitar organ trio from Steinbert, Benoit, and Gandul. This came out June 4th. Luis Casado Munoz, known as Alein Steinbert, is a Spanish jazz guitarist, composer, and educator born in Cordoba in 1992. Based in Seville, he's performed at major European festivals, and he's released several albums as a leader and collaborator. His style blends jazz, funk, and contemporary influences. He released a double guitar quartet album last year with guitarist Alex Cobos, just called Quartet, and in 2019, Tiempo Presente, with a bass and drums trio. On this recording, Alein Steinbert on guitar, Thibault Benoit on the drums, and Álvaro Gandul on the organ. This was recorded at Estudios Gandul, I guess that's Álvaro's own studio, on January 24th of this year. Recording assistant Lucia Vargas and mastering by Fabian Romero. And the recording gets started with the Steinbert original composition, Burnout. Things get started with a 12-bar minor blues. Syncopated organ chord hits under the guitar melody push it along for 2 rounds, and Steinbert is right up for a solo over walking organ bass. Let's hear this recording get going. Nice clean tone and swing feel there. He plays on, working into a section of choppy chord ideas, so let's hear some more of his playing on this one. Gandul takes a little gap before getting going on an organ solo, mixing up rhythmic patterns and working chords under sustained higher notes, and Benoit gets 2 choruses on drums before they finish it up with a couple final rounds of the melody. Track 2 is also a Steinbert original, El Limonar. The drums kick it into an 8-measure intro with a bounce from the organ chords. The melody is built around a rising and falling guitar riff idea with an interesting AABA structure with 14-measure A sections and a 7-measure B. The rhythmic feel and chords keep you guessing at what's coming next. Let's hear it get going into the B section of the melody. Reaching into the next section there. Steinbert is up first again for a solo over a medium swinging groove with nice fills and accents from Benoit. Let's check out some of Gandul's organ solo on this one. Vamp around on the intro idea for a while for Benoit to work the drums before getting back to a final time through the melody. Track 3 is a Gandul original, Focolito. Maybe they could call this Funkalito too, since it works up a
really
funky groove over the 16-measure intro with some muted picking from Steinbert. Benoit works it into a steady feel for the guitar melody, which is 31 measures. The first 2 sections are 8 measures, but the third has some interesting minor chord changes and ends sooner than expected to an interesting effect. Let's check it out. Steinbert continues on for a solo from there. His clean tone and clear articulation work well on melodic ideas on this one. Gandul follows with an organ solo. Let's hear Benoit have some drum fun on this one. From there. Track 4 is an original from Benoit called Emma. This one has a 12-measure intro with some muted guitar before the main melody that gets a samba-like feel from the pulsing organ bass. It has a 32-measure melody of similar halves that the organ doubles from midway. Gandul has a flowing melodic organ solo, and Steinbert keeps the mood with well-connected phrasing. I'll leave you to check out the solos on this one on your own. They wrap it up with a melody section and final phrase repeat. Track 5 is Willard Robinson's Old Folks, a jazz standard that goes back to 1938, and in that year it was first recorded by Larry Clinton, then Mildred Bailey and Bing Crosby recorded it in the same year, and later on Charlie Parker and Sarah Vaughan picked it up in the 1950s, cementing it in jazz standard history. Gandul makes a dreamy solo intro here, so let's check that out first. And let's keep listening to hear some of Steinbert's tender treatment of this famous melody. he gets into some double stops on the way on this one, and Gandul and Steinbert both have flowing and melodic solos. Track 6 is another Steinbert original, Parsimonia. It's a happy-sounding bluesy tune with a 16-measure melody. Gandul doubles up the melody lines with Steinbert on the repeat. Let's hear it. Let's check out some of Steinbert's playful solo that he's just getting started on this one. Gandul has a fun solo too, and they both do some trading with Benoit before getting back to the melody. Track 7 is a Gandul original, Pares y Nones, Even and Odd. This is a bluesy one with a returning catchy riff in the melody. I guess it's 16 measures if you hear it as the drums coming in on the second beat of the first measure. The solos follow that pattern, and Steinbert is up first. It up into a climax of aggressive chords, and Gandul has an exciting organ solo on this one, so let's check out a little bit of his playing as well. Next, they do some trading with Benoit before a final time through the melody. Track 8 is a Benoit original for Wayne. This is a neat tune with a polyrhythmic thing going on. The melody is 32 measures. If you listen to the guitar on the 8-measure intro, you'll feel and count it in 4/4, but Benoit's drums are creating a 6/8 groove. The second section takes a bluesy twist, and then the third section switches up to a 4/4 feel over walking bass before we hear the opening section once more. Let's check it out. Steinbert is up first for a solo, and they keep the rhythmic switch-ups underneath, and he builds up some good tension with both rhythm and outside ideas in his solos. So let's take a listen to some of that. Gandul has a solo too, and they vamp out for Benoit to work around the drum kit to the end. Track 9 is the title track, Collage, and this is credited to all 3 members. I could see how this may have come out of jamming on an idea. It's got a funky straight beat set up with some muted picking from Steinbert on the 8-measure intro. The tune is in an ABA shape with 12-measure A sections featuring traded off phrases in an interplay. Let's hear it get started. Steinbert uses a doubling effect on his solo here that opens up some interesting possibilities. So let's listen to a little bit of that. A section of the melody back in as a transition to an energetic organ solo from Gandul, and one more A section and an outro like the intro finishes it up. And the recording finishes up with a Gandul original, O Mua Mua. And if you speak Hawaiian, that may sound familiar because it means scout. Otherwise, if your memory is not so bad, as ours is probably getting, that's the name that was given to the first interstellar object detected passing through our solar system back in 2017, that cigar-shaped thing that came through. This has a chilled-out straight groove. There's an 8-measure intro into a 16-measure melody with a catchy guitar riff and a contrasting section before the riff returns. There's an extra measure to breathe at the end. Let's hear it get going. Gandul and Steinbert have warm and relaxed solos on this one, which I'll leave you to check out since we've got a lot of tracks to get through tonight in jazz. And that's the recording. On Collage, Alein Steinbert, Álvaro Gandul, and Thibault Benoit put together a collection of tunes that form a very satisfying program. There are bluesy moments that everyone will love, funky fun, a bit of Latin feel, and that's balanced by warm balladry on the classic old folks, and a chilled groove on the last O Mua Mua. Each member contributes originals. Some of the structures and change-ups in tunes are unique and keep your curiosity going throughout the recording. Steinbert's guitar style is interesting, with a clean sound, funky ideas, and a nice mix of extended chord sections in his solos. He seems to have built his style on a variety of influences. Gandul's organ playing is fine, with punchy chord backing, cool bass lines, and solos that match Steinbert for excitement. And Benoit's drum playing is enjoyable, never overpowering in volume, but adding in a lot of details and versatility, giving each tune a unique feel. So this is one I'd recommend to all organ trio fans, and why not have a little twist on it from Spain?
Yeah, the tracks tend to contrast here, going from style to style and tempo to tempo. There are ballads, swing, even two funky tracks. My personal favorites on this album, Collage and Folcolito. I really like that a lot. Yeah, that was cool. Yeah, the trio are equal partners, where Steinbert and Benoit playing off each other in appealing fashion, both occasionally taking long solos. Steinbert with especially appealing solos in Burnout, where he has a lot of ideas that play out over a long period of time. And Collage, it's pretty amazing and has some more aggressive sounds on it too, that track. Benoit will often take off from where the guitar left off, and sometimes uses a contrasting approach too. I liked his solo in Paras y Nones especially. Álvaro Gandul gets in on the action too, soloing with different approaches in each track. This was a bit of a surprising album and a highly appealing one.
Yeah, I'm glad that we can get organ trios from all around the world.
Yeah, we've been hearing a lot of great organ recordings. Who knew? There's like a whole... We could just do this podcast about just organ trio recordings, or just organ recordings, because the Hammond organ is making a big comeback, I think.
You know, back when internet radio and things first started, the Apple iTunes used to have little channels, and there was one called Hammond Radio. I have no idea if it's still out there. And what was interesting about it was that it was a variety of genres, you know, a lot of 60s music, some R&B, jazz, anything that featured Hammond would be in the mix. And I used to play that all the time. Yeah. And then once we started doing this podcast, I haven't been able to get away from the organ sound myself.
I've always had a thing for the Hammond organ too, ever since I heard like the Jimmy Smith recordings, but even some recent ones. And now, boy, the floodgates are open. there's like a real niche kind of market for those, I think. And I just love the sound of the instrument, though.
I love it. I never get tired of it.
Yeah, me neither.
All right, next, let's go to Ajaropa Records with bassist Ben Farrell's Sextet. This came out June 5th. Bassist and composer Ben Farrell was born in Richmond, Virginia, and is now active on the New York City jazz scene. He's a graduate of Old Dominion University and the Tribeca Jazz Institute, also having studied and played with Pasquale Grasso, Kenny Washington, Cecil McBee, John Toomey, Grant Stewart, and Bruce Harris. About this recording, Farrell says, quote, Sextet honors the tradition of improvised music before me while finding our own contemporary, modernized, unique version of it. It has swing, it has the blues, and those are important influences, but as a product of the internet age, I had access to a huge breadth of music, and it all informs this music as well. Electronic music, fusion, psychedelics, and so much more. Keen listeners will hear it all blended together to form my own unique compositional and improvisational voice. So on the recording, Ben Farrell on bass, and he also made the artwork for the album. Atlee King on the vibes, Rintaro Mikami on drums, Nick Rousseau on electric guitar, Reginald Chapman on bass trombone and bass trumpet, and Will Evans on trumpet. Engineered by Colin Monex, mixed by Nick Rousseau, and mastered by Grady Bajorek. This was recorded on January 12, 2025 at GB's Juke Joint Studio. The recording starts out with the Farrell original, Tholus, and Farrell starts this out with some driving open fifths for 8 measures, working into some simultaneous improvisations from the horns for 32 measures before the melody. The melody is 32 measures as well, with a repeating A section, a switch to a swinging section, and a Latin change-up for the last section. I'll give you a long sample so you can hear all of that good stuff happen. Rousseau is up first for a reverby guitar solo with flowing lines. Chapman follows with a bass trombone solo with snappy licks, and Evans is next on trumpet with reaching and weaving ideas, and then King on a bouncy vibes solo. But we always go for a solo sample from the leader, if there is one, in the first tune, so let's check out Farrell's solo on this one. Aggressive forward energy in that solo. They take it through the melody again, vamping on the Latiny section for Mikami to work up the drums to the end. Track 2 is another Farrell original, Kaladan. This one has a dreamy modal mood. Farrell sets the pace with an ostinato figure for 4 measures. Vibes ring under the flowing horn line melody. Let's check out the first part with an 8-measure phrase and 2 6-measure phrases. The final section leads to improvised horn exchanges over a more sparse environment with less forward motion. It blooms open with ideas from everyone, so let's hear some of that as well. From there, it chills out back into another time through the melody. Track 3 is another Farrell original, Picky Bits. This one has fun, jumpy energy, kicked off by an 8-measure intro from Farrell. Vibes and guitar join in for another round. The horns are in for a 32-measure AABA melody with a swinging B section. Farrell's up first for a bass solo that has catchy melodic ideas and lots of bounce. Evans follows on trumpet, so let's check out his playful solo on this one. King has a vibe solo, and Chapman a bass trombone solo, and Mikami gets a drum solo too before they get back to the melody and an outro to finish it up. Track 4 is Thelonious Monk's Light Blue, recorded in 1957 on Thelonious in Action, the Thelonious Monk Quartet with Johnny Griffin, recorded live at the Five Spot Cafe. It was released the following year. They keep the lazy feel Monk recorded this with, but stretch it out with spaces for Farrell to comment on the melody lines started by vibes and guitar. When the horns join in, Mikami gets to fill in the gaps. It's a really fun idea for an arrangement. Horns and guitar trade off improvised lines and flow together then in a nonchalant manner. Let's hear how that all culminates. And back to the melody from there. Horns in from the start this time, and Farrell filling the spaces. Track 5 is another Farrell original, Song for Stilgar. The album notes describe this as a loose, ornette-esque melodic setting. It has a lush rubato opening with bowed bass from Farrell, ringing vibes and guitar and drum fills into the flowing horn melody. Let's check it out. Up first for a vibe solo on this one. Chapman follows on bass trombone, getting some groovy licks that reach way down low, so let's check him out on this one. Rousseau has a reverby guitar solo with lots of space to ring out in, working to more edgy ideas. After the final melody section, Mikami gets to work the drums over vamping to the finish. It's the longest track on the album at more than 10 minutes. Track 6 is a Farrell original as well, Dragon Roost Island. This one has a 6/8 feel and an enchanting minor mood. Rousseau gets the rhythm going and Farrell chimes in on bass on the 16-measure intro. The horn melody sounds like 30 measures in 10-measure sections with some sweet harmonization in the horn lines. It's a great melody. Evans has the main solo on trumpet with intricate lines and delicate tone, joining up in unison lines with the others into a final short melody section that diffuses. I'll leave you to check out the rest of this one on your own. Track 7 is Never Forget, a song written by Martin O'Donnell and Michael Salvatori. This is from the video game soundtrack for Halo 3 from 2007. Here it's interestingly done in 7/8 time. Mikami gets it going with a light but popping beat. It has a long build-up with guitar figures and ringing vibes. Let's take a sample from where the horns come in about a minute into the tune. Let's keep listening to Rousseau's guitar solo that also gets some horn backing lines. follows with an enthusiastic vibe solo, and the horns return with flowing lines to finish it up. Track 8, another Fauré original, and so we've come thus far. This is a rolling rubato dreamy tune, the shortest on the album at less than 3 minutes. Let's check out the beginning with guitar arpeggios into bowed bass and ringing vibes and cymbals and drum fills. Will join the flow, but it keeps its dreamy state, kind of like lying back and watching the clouds float by on a summer day. And the recording ends up with an alternate take of Song for Stilgar, and this is a shorter and different take, notably because it doesn't have horns. King takes the melody on vibes and Farrell solos first on bass, and I haven't sampled one of King's vibes solos yet, so let's check out some of his playing on this one, with Mikami working up the drums underneath. This recording grew on me the more that I listened to it. Ben Farrell's Sextet has instrumentation that creates a unique atmosphere. Ringing vibes from Atlee King and spacious guitar from Nick Rousseau create a sustained space of sound that is well taken advantage of in the compositions, making for an overall dreamy presentation. There are more intense and rhythmic moments, but it never seems forced or rushed in performance, and Farrell's original compositions, along with one Monk classic and a unique treatment of Never Forget, all gel together nicely for a cohesive program. Farrell has diverse roles on the bass throughout, from getting the opening track going with propulsion to adding subtle bowed bass in spots. His solos have fine tone and articulation with melodic direction. Reginald Chapman on bass trombone and bass trumpet, and Will Evans handle most of the melody lines with a great brass blend and charming harmonization, and both get room to stretch out on improvised solos, as does everyone else in the band. And Rintaro Mikami impresses with drumming versatility throughout, from subtle fills to popping grooves matching the moods perfectly. It's a recording to chill out with, and you'll surely find yourself pulled deeply into the music.
Yeah, I kind of got into this more and more as I listened to it. I liked it right away, but then I kind of noticed that it had a lot of more depth to it than I originally thought it would. It struck me as something sort of traditional, but also off the beaten track at the same time, just because of that depth, you know?
Yeah.
The sextet, despite what you'd think would be limited space, wind up stretching out and creating some really compelling tracks here. I really liked Atlee King's tone on the vibes. He was a pleasure to hear throughout the album, especially for me on his solo on Song for Stilgar, the first one. And I loved his sound on the opening track, Tholus, too. My personal favorite track on the album. This album like hooked me in right away with that first track. And everyone gets a chance to make a statement on that track. I also really dug the inclusion of the bass trombone and bass trumpet, as I'm sure you did too, Russ.
Yeah.
You choose that because you want those low notes, and Reginald Chapman gives us that satisfaction and goes down for them, producing a huge bass tone. Speaking of bass, Ben Farrell has a room-filling tone of his own and great energy on the bass. I think he really kind of, they might have been going anyway, but he really gets these guys going. He sounds like he has a lot of excitement when he plays. He's got an appealing personality on the instrument, often coming up with lines that bring a lot of pleasure, and he really thumps the strings hard, almost seemingly pulling them off the instrument at times. The addition of Nick Rousseau on electric guitar adds yet another layer of sound to this album that satisfies sonically, as well as composition-wise. Will Evans on trumpet stands out because he's really the only standard jazz instrument here, yet he also solos in a way keeping with the album's offbeat vibe. And I got to mention Rintaro Mikami, he's the only one I haven't mentioned yet, on drums. He tends to solo over vamps at the end of tracks and also provides some offbeat rhythms like the one on Light Blue. Otherwise, he holds the often simultaneous improvisations together with his grooves. This was an album that caught my interest right away and had me fascinated throughout, and it kind of got more and more interesting for me as it went on, as I figured out what it was doing. So I really liked it a lot.
Yeah, it's got a real interesting timbral combination, because when you think of sextet, you think I'm going to have a couple saxes and a trumpet.
Yeah, or it's going to be dense, too. There's going to be a lot of sound. And there was, but it kind of wasn't the sort of sound I expected.
But this one's really spacious, and then you've just got two brass instruments that blend nicely. And, yeah, the compositions were all interesting. I hope they record another album with the same personnel, because I'd like to hear more music from this group. All right, and we've got one more for you on La Reserve Records. Trombonist David Gibson with Darkness Blooms. And this came out on May 29th. I had this slated from before, but of course we skipped a week, so now we're getting to it here. David Gibson is an Oklahoma native who went to the Eastman Conservatory of Music. He spent time with trombonist arranger Slide Hampton after coming to New York in the mid-1990s. He has 7 previous recordings by 2- and 3-horn ensembles since 2002, 3 albums with Orrin Evans' Captain Black Big Band, and he worked as musical director for George G's Swing Orchestra. In 2024, he made his debut quartet album as the only solo horn, and we discussed that one in episode 150, Music a la Modal.
That was a good title by us.
And that was Fellowship on Imani Records. About that recording, I noted that Gibson's original tunes were exciting with challenging harmonies, lots of interesting modal ideas and rhythmic variety, and he showed great chops and endurance to be the only horn to handle all the melodies, often right into extended solos. And thanks to David for sending me the recording credits, since I didn't hear back from La Reserve Records trying to get some more information. They don't really have much online information about the recording yet. I did find a quote from Gibson about the music elsewhere. He says, quote, "This album is about recognizing all of the interconnectedness in life, both within music and outside of it. A lot of the song titles quote directly from Eastern philosophy." Well, Mike and I are deeply immersed in Eastern philosophy here.
We certainly are. Not necessarily in reading it, but just kind of, feeling it around us.
Yeah, so we should be ready for this, and we're in for some cool modal compositions again this time. The lineup here, David Gibson on the trombone and all original compositions, Cameron Campbell on piano, Joseph Leporé on bass. I'm pretty sure I said his name wrong the last time. He's the only member other than Gibson who was on the previous Fellowship recording. And Jay Sawyer on drums. This was recorded live May 27th, 2025 at GB's Juke Joint, Long Island City, New York by Colin Monax. So the same studio and engineer as Farrell's Sextet recording we just talked about, just by chance. Mixing by Colin Monax and David Gibson. Mastering on this one, though, by David Darlington. And it's produced by David Gibson for La Reserve Records. The recording starts out with a tune called Portrait of a Mirage. This has a 6/8 rhythm, getting propulsion from Leporé's bass from the start. There's an 8-measure intro with Gibson slithering in before a brighter modal change with the start of the melody. The structure seems to be alternating 8- and 6-measure sections that go around again, and Gibson continues on with improvisations. Nice accents and change-ups on the drums from Sawyer underneath. Let's hear things get started. Let's come back in to hear some more of his solo, and notice how everyone is listening and locking in with some of his rhythmic ideas. Yeah, nice climax. It's not easy being a solo brass player in a quartet, but like on the last recording, Gibson has the endurance to carry on from a melody as the first soloist. Campbell is up next for a piano solo with punchy left-hand chords under reaching ideas, and Leporé has a bass solo with great tone and agility. They hit the start of the melody, but Gibson has more improvised ideas with swell from everyone and a gradually quietening ending. Track 2 is Mirror's Surface. This has a hypnotic bass and left-hand piano figure in the opening 8 measure section. Gibson floats a rising line figure on top. The trombone melody is delicate and the bass and piano pair back, still with some interesting triplet figures under the trombone in 8 and 6 measure sections with a lifting harmonic change on the way. Then the opening section returns. Let's check it out. Opening section idea again from there. Campbell is up first for a piano solo on this one. I like the combination of smoothness and rhythmic ideas in his lines. He gets a long time to develop things, but let's check out the ending with some cool rising figure ideas. some backing from Gibson there. Who's up next? Gibson builds up from rhythmic figures with lots of space and a mature relaxedness. The whole band energy cranks up for his climax. It comes down softly to connect back to the melody, skipping the opening section, which returns at the end with more playful ideas from Gibson. It's a really cool tune. Track 3 is Equanimity. It's a tune with a lot of tricky rhythmic things going on. Listen to the bass and left-hand figures in the opening section against the drums that will make you wonder about the meter. You can count it straight through the same as the melody that has a more sure-footed 4/4 feel with contrasting legato lines from Gibson. Interestingly, again in 8 and 6 measure sections. Then that opening section is back into a repeat. Leporé is up for a bass solo first on this one, so let's hear some of his playing. Back to the tricky figure there, to transition to a solo from Gibson, who develops melodic ideas and has some rhythmic playfulness too. Campbell's piano solo balances finesse on running lines with punchy chords and a few bluesy touches, once more through the melody, and they finish up on the opening section idea with final thoughts from Gibson. Track 4 is Thoughts Arise. I assume this is talking about during meditation. This one charges out of the gate with an exciting 19-measure opening section with tricky slide work from Gibson over dangerous rhythms. Piano and bass then set an awesome groove for Gibson to work ideas over, and soon things are off on a furious driving swing. It doesn't seem right to cut the energy there, so on this one, let's keep on listening to Gibson's improvisations. Exciting playing. Campbell's up next, and Sawyer is really keeping the excitement moving with some powerful drumming. He gets to work around the kit over a vamping section on the groove that leads to a return to the opening section and keeps the force going right to the end. Track 5, Darkness Blooms. The title track here gets going with a snare roll into an 8-measure intro, setting up the slow waltz tempo. There's a 24-measure trombone melody that starts out gentle and good-natured, but reaches a huge, insistent climax. Let's hear it. Interlude section leads to improvisations from Gibson. Campbell's piano solo on this one is really exciting with some bluesy hints and percussive energy, so let's hear some of that as well. And Gibson is back for another time through the melody from there. After the climax, it cools down over a vamp to a slowed ending. Track 6 is Resilience. Leporé gets this going with a simple but infectious bass ostinato. Campbell adds some decoration when drums and piano come in, making a straight Latin-y feel. That all continues on under the trombone melody, so let's listen from when Gibson enters so we can hear as much of the melody as possible. It has a repeated first 8-measure comfortable section, but then takes some unexpected twists to raise up the tension. Campbell has a piano solo that keeps you guessing rhythmically, and Gibson starts his solo relaxedly from softly floated notes and works up intensity. For the sake of time, I'll leave you to check out the solos on your own on this one. Track 7, Automaticity. This one will keep you on your toes. At first, the opening feels like 8 bars in a 5/4 meter, but once you listen on, you realize it's probably just polyrhythms over 6 measures of the loping 4/4 swing beat for the trombone melody that also changes back and forth with a straight Latin feel. Let's hear as much of it as we can in a minute. Of the melody, there's a half-length section of that opening idea, and Gibson is up first for a solo. He's followed by Campbell. The opening is back into a final melody section, and I'll leave you to check out the solos on this one on your own as well. Track 8 is Liminal Moments. From the bass and drum patterns, this one sounds like it's in 6/4 with an even Latin-y feel. The 30-measure trombone melody has unique line phrasing, and the bass and piano backing is interesting too. Let's check it out. Fauré is up first for a bass solo on this one, so let's hear some more of his playing. Gibson follows, and Campbell has an engaging piano solo too. Sawyer generates some drum energy after the final melody section before it quietens over the ostinato bass. Track 9 is The Purge. This one is tricky, a jagged and jumpy melody handled in unison by trombone and piano. It sounds like 30 measures before Gibson is off into improvisations. Let's check it out. Campbell follows, and then they do some trading with Sawyer's drums, so let's check out some of that as well. To the melody from there to wrap things up. And the recording finishes up with There Will Always Be We. After a lot of intensity in the program, this finishes things up with something more soothing. It's got a 12/8 feel to the groove, and Gibson's trombone melody has that longing feeling that the trombone does best. The lines and harmonies underneath really lift things up. Campbell has a gentle piano solo, showing off a lighter touch and chiming chords, and when Gibson returns, he sticks with the melody. And why not? It's lovely, and he finishes with a really long-held, soft note for his phrase, and the trio finish off the tune in gentle fashion. And that's the recording. On Darkness Blooms, David Gibson displays more of the great trombone playing that we heard on his previous recording, Fellowship. Great chops to blow through melodies right into extended solos and improvisations that are adventurous, searching, and often hint at primal emotions. The all-original program here shows that he's continued to develop his composition craft. Things are mostly in a modal world here, but there's a lot of different moods, interesting structures, and lots of variety of meters and rhythmic feels. Joseph Leporé, who we heard on the previous recording, helps set a lot of the feeling with neat ostinatos, driving bass lines, and appealing solos. I was impressed with Cameron Campbell's piano playing for his overall musicality and ability to generate a lot of excitement in the more intense tunes. He can really build a climax in his solos. And Jay Sawyer's drumming was tight and energetic throughout, with a few moments to stand out and really crank up the energy. Mostly, I enjoyed the synergy of this rhythm section. You can pick up on the communication and reactive interplay to things that happen in the music, and that adds a lot of excitement to the recording. Among the top post-bop trombonists out there today, David Gibson stands out with a unique style and direction in his compositions and playing.
Yeah, I remember that earlier David Gibson album, and I thought this one sounded a lot different than that one. It's a lot more adventurous, I thought. His tracks are really long here, leaving a lot of room to solo, and I really liked that too. That's generally the case on that earlier album and here too, and we get some stellar soloing from Gibson, as you mentioned, and pianist Cameron Campbell too, and they sort of act as foils for each other. Campbell generally taking a lighter approach after Gibson's really full-on playing. Bassist Joseph Leporé is melodic in his solos, and drummer Jay Sawyer is hard-hitting and complex at the same time. These tracks were all classically played, and I was especially impressed with Cameron Campbell's constant generation of great ideas on the longer tracks towards the beginning of the album, particularly in the first track, Portrait of a Mirage. He's someone I'll have to listen for. Gibson himself plays with strong, steady, upfront tone and sounds solid throughout, handling melodic material beautifully while generating some compelling solos. Anyway, the playing on the album is fantastic and deeply satisfying, and there's good sound all around too. And I didn't check for this one, but I remember the previous one wasn't on a CD, or I didn't find it anyway. And this one, I don't know. So I kind of hope it is. It's pretty adventurous playing.
Yeah, it's got the whole kind of modal sound world to it, and the rhythmic elements are exciting. And I just love to hear trombones, so yeah, I'll probably add this to my collection as well.
I've come to like the trombone a lot myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, David, I'm looking forward to the next one. I'd like to hear more with this group of musicians. There seems to be a real good energy here.
Yeah, you got a CD? Send it to us. I want that.
All right, that's going to wrap things up for episode 262, and we'll be back again with another episode next week, 263. We've got the program lined up already. What do you have on the classical side of the menu, Mike?
All right, first in Baroque, we actually have a Baroque recording, a musical offering, and it features a bit of that Johann Sebastian Bach work, but also works by Carl Philipp Emanuel, his son, and also, well, there's a little bit from Wilhelm Friedemann. He's advertised on the album cover, but he only gets one track. This is by Le Caravanserai, which is a trio of musicians, Sophie Jant on violin, Frank Thun on transverse flute, and Bertrand Couillet on harpsichord. So that'll be our lead-off work. Then a work that I really want to hear, because I've never heard it before. Respighi's Sinfonia Drammatica. It's never been recorded. Well, it probably has been recorded, but this is the first time I'm coming across it, really, on a recording. Composed 1913 to 1915. It's a very long work, and it's the only work on the album. Very long, meaning an hour. It's not as long as a Mahler symphony, but still pretty long for him. And this is played by the Orchestra Sinfonica Nazionale della Rai, conducted by Robert Trevino, and we've heard him on that Americascapes album long ago. So I liked his conducting a lot, and we're going to hear this. This is on the Ondine label. A composer for the contemporary section, David Sisko, an album called Infrastructure, the songs of David Sisko, and I guess he's American. There's really not much detail about his origins online, but the notes kind of talk about where he went to school and things like that. So he's one of these people who came into existence in school. They don't tell you the early part of their lives, which I'm kind of interested in. I'd like to know where he's from, at least. This is just a 43, I think, track album of his songs, which seems to be pretty short. I'm kind of interested to hear what they sound like and what they're about. So that's on the Métier label, and we'll be hearing that too.
New discoveries.
Yeah.
On the jazz side, we're going to go over to Europe for all three recordings, although the first one is another one on Agiropa, but it's UK saxophonist and composer Rob Cope with his recording Phoenix Volume 1, and then we'll hear some more sax, this time over in Spain on the Fresh Sound label with saxophonist Fran Ramos's Steppin' Beyond, and finally we'll go to Denmark for the Binyami Veltri Jazz Ensemble. You say, that doesn't sound very Danish. Those are two Italian female composers, and this group is a sextet playing their original compositions and one interesting cover tune, and it's called Non-Places, and it's on the Italian Gleam Records label. All three of those recordings just came out Friday, June 12th, so fresh stuff from Europe.
Jazz is really happening there, especially in England, I think. There's a lot of good stuff there.
There's a lot of good stuff from all the countries.
Really, yeah. Okay,
and, a lot of the Spanish, Italian, French, all the countries' music doesn't get talked about enough in English.
And let's not forget Greece, our favorite
Greece
place.
as well. And so the U.S. press and the English press doesn't talk a lot about that music, so that's what we're here for. So I like to pick up on it as much as I can.
Yeah, take a trip to Europe. You can go to a jazz club and have a good night out.
Yeah, absolutely. So all these recordings, the classical and jazz, will be together on our Deezer playlist, and I'll have a link to that on our Facebook page as well. We'll get that together a few hours after this episode is published if you want to get listening to things early during the week as we are. As always, we want to say thanks to Fast Signs of Staten Island for our glowing neon logo. Any final words for this one, Mike?
Well, what did I say at the beginning of this podcast? That I was fresh and rested?
Yeah.
I'm ready for bed now.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, boy. This podcast takes a lot out of you. It's fun, but it's exhausting.
Yeah. Anyway, we'll freshen up again and be back next week with episode 263. So until then, keep listening, and we'll see you again next time.